Hello everyone, Dr. Yonit Arthur here. I'm an audiologist and coach. You are on the Steady Coach. And today we're going to be talking about the top 5 changes that people make in their lives as they are recovering successfully from neural circuit dizziness. Neural circuit dizziness meaning medically unexplained chronic dizziness symptoms, and that includes diagnoses like PPPD, MdDS, vestibular migraine. Those of you who had vestibular neuritis and haven't gotten better in the expected healing time, and anyone else out there who has chronic dizziness symptoms that just don't seem to have a medical explanation. Now, in the neural circuit, neuroplastic, mind-body world, you're going to hear a lot of takes about what you need to do in order to recover from those symptoms, because these symptoms are not just limited to dizziness. They also include pain, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, migraines, etc. But one of the things that I've been coming out explicitly to say, and that I think sometimes freaks people out, is that in the recovery process, you are going to change. And that is understandably, again, a really scary thing to hear when you're dealing with medically unexplained chronic symptoms, especially dizziness. The last thing you want to hear is that, oh yeah, by the way, you also totally need to change everything about you and who you are. So I want to clarify that's not what I'm saying, and that's why I'm making this video, so you can hear about the kinds of changes people have made. But that all being said, I want you to know that not everyone does need to go through transformational changes in order to get better. For some people, it's just about really getting into that fear and anxiety cycle, breaking that, stopping avoidance, understanding the symptoms don't mean there's something wrong with you, and then they get better from there. So please, if you have not already taken my free course, that is where you need to start if you are new here. This video is really for people who are already familiar with that material. You don't want to start with transformational change when you are brand new to neural circuit dizziness and getting better. Again, please take the free course. It is linked in the video description. It's comprehensive. It's totally free. You will not be charged anything. And you can also visit my website to sign up, thesteadycoach.com/free-course. The number one transformative change that people undergo when they are successfully recovering from chronic dizziness symptoms is relating to their own experiences differently. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, emotions, other inner experiences, beliefs, values, etc. Now, when people are dealing with neural circuit dizziness, often the way that they are responding to their symptoms is totally out of balance. They may be over-responding to physical sensations, like constantly focusing on them and thinking about them, and then under-responding to other experiences or relating to them in a way that does not promote safety. For example, people may have long-standing relationships with themselves that aren't the healthiest. They may avoid relating to their own feelings. They may feel resentment rather than address underlying issues in a particular relationship. And all of that may be totally covered up because all they're focusing on is symptoms. So what happens during recovery, this transformative change that happens in recovery, is that people start to relate to their physical sensations in a different way, usually starting with a little more neutrality, sometimes by the end with even more welcome, sometimes not. It's okay if you never get there. This is often started through that process called somatic tracking, which of course I detail in the free course I referenced already. And if you need a refresher on somatic tracking, I will put the summary video about somatic tracking in the video description below as well for you. But also tends to just evolve over time as people start to practice that skill. So people start to notice symptoms and just not take them as seriously or take them as a sign of something else, like I need to worry about my stress, or, oh, this is a sign I'm not relating to myself as well as I want to be. The meaning of the symptom essentially changes over time. And at the same time, when the focus starts to shift away from symptoms, people do start to focus their attention a little more on the things that they may need to address in their lives. For some people, that means prioritizing their needs and feelings more. And for other people, that means uncovering why they feel stuck in certain situations or in conflict in certain situations in their lives. All of this starts with this transformative change that I called relating differently to feelings, thoughts, other core experiences. It's not necessarily that you're going to go in after watching this video and say, oh, well, people who've recovered have always done A, B, and C, and this is what I need to do in this situation. What you're going to be able to do is to look very honestly at how you relate to your own feelings and experiences and ask yourself, is this a safety promoting way that I'm relating to this thing, or not a safety promoting way? So here's how I typically explain this. Most people, when faced with something really uncomfortable, say frustration, that you still have symptoms, they will either try to avoid it or they will fall into it. So with the example of frustration, what this would look like is you, on the avoiding side, would try to deny it or try to talk yourself out of it or try to distract yourself. And by the way, none of those are necessarily bad strategies. I'm not saying you should just sit around in your frustration all the time. I'm just giving some examples of long-standing patterns people have that reflect this non-safety promoting way of relating to themselves as a whole. So it's okay to do this sometimes, it just shouldn't be the only way you relate to yourself. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's on the avoidance side of things. The other way people react to feeling something uncomfortable like frustration would be to just let it consume them and just kind of fall into it and let it tell the frustrating story and just feel totally overwhelmed with frustration. What I'm talking about when I say relating to experiences differently is neither of those two things. It's actually being in relationship to, in this example, the frustration in a way that's actually helpful. So rather than making it go away, or rather than just believing it, you may notice, hey, I have frustration going on and I can choose how I'm going to relate to this frustration now that it's here. And there are lots of different ways to do this. I'm going to reference a video that I'm going to link to in the video description that I think really outlines this process well. It's the video about what to do when you're struggling. And it's a multiple step process that goes through exactly how to do this process that I call safe relating, or relating in ways that create safety. And this is the number one change people make when they're recovering from medically unexplained chronic dizziness symptoms. Transformative change number 2 that people make, they change the way they relate to other people as well. So for some people, this means setting stronger boundaries because, as in number 1, they're more in touch with their feelings, with their thoughts, with their concerns, with their needs, and it becomes clearer to them, hey, I'm not being an advocate to myself in this situation. And the reason I feel resentment is because I'm not setting boundaries with this person, for example. So again, for some of you, that means setting more boundaries, saying no more often. But kind of related to this may be actually a softening of your position toward other people, toward more forgiveness. Now hear me out, because I actually have a very, shall we say, contentious relationship with forgiveness. I think people often steamroll their own feelings and desires to try to forgive prematurely without actually processing what happened, and it's a whole thing. So I should probably just do a whole video about forgiveness. But in the meantime, what I'm trying to say here is, when you are advocating for yourself more and you're relating to your own experiences with more respect and compassion, like we talked about in number 1, it becomes easier to take the blame off other people and take responsibility for things without necessarily blaming, guilting, or shaming yourself. It becomes easier to just recognize these things as they are for what they are without needing to assign blame to other people or to yourself in order to avoid other feelings. So in the end, what this means is kind of like what it means for the boundary setting. you feel like a better advocate for yourself, and you're able to relate to other people in actually a kinder, more forgiving, softer way as well. Transformative change number 3 that people make when they are recovering from medically unexplained chronic dizziness is they tend to focus more on the things that they're grateful for and less on the things that are wrong. So in other words, there's a shift toward all the things that are right versus all the things that are wrong. And I recognize that this is not an easy shift to make, because at the same time, just like I was covering in number 1 and number 2, your job in this process is to create safety and a good, strong relationship with yourself where you know how to relate to your own experiences and know how to relate to other people in a way that feels good as well. So it's not a matter of just steamrolling things that you don't feel good about. People tend to genuinely, when they slow down and relate to their relationships and themselves in this way, they tend to stop and deliberately notice the things that they're grateful for a little bit more. And that, again, is a transformative process. Lots of science to back up the importance of gratitude too. The thing that I want to, again, really emphasize here, especially to those of you who are newer to this recovery process, is that while it's still helpful to notice things that you're grateful for and start practicing gratitude, you don't want to do it at the expense of noticing and being there for yourself through hard times and through suffering as well. In other words, I don't want you to bypass difficult or negative experiences just to feel gratitude. We can do both at the same time. You can feel gratitude and start to notice and practice gratitude more while still relating respectfully to the difficult experiences that you're having right now. And a closely related change is number 4. So the 4th transformational change that people undergo as they recover from medically unexplained chronic dizziness is there tends to be a shift toward the focus on meaning and purpose in people's lives. And what I mean by this is there tends to be a gravitation or a pull toward more connection, more meaning, more purpose, more value-driven things versus achievement-driven things. And I'm not saying that achievement isn't necessarily a core value for you. What I mean by this is when people are driven toward things that don't tend to stimulate that deep feeling of humanity and connection inside us, sometimes those are just things you were born with. They're innate loves, like you may have a love of competitiveness. And if that's the case, do you. That's purpose-driven. But for some people, competitiveness and achievement are really pressures or values that they absorb from outside sources, and they're really a matter of people running away from something versus running towards something. Okay, so for example, you may say, I really want this promotion at work. I want you to ask yourself, what would happen if I didn't get the promotion? And just really be honest with yourself about what it would mean. Does it mean you'd be a terrible person and you wouldn't be achieving what you're supposed to achieve? Would other people look at you differently? At the same time, does this truly reflect a deep source of fulfillment, connection, and happiness inside you, or does it not? Is it really more about other people and how you're seen? Again, I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong. What I'm telling you is that when people are recovering, there tends to be a refocusing on and a rediscovery of their own true core values, ones that they did not adopt because they're trying to impress other people or run away from feelings of worthlessness or self-doubt, but rather because they're things that truly, deeply matter to them as people. And the 5th transformative change that I've seen occur in people who recover from medically unexplained chronic dizziness symptoms is the way that they tend to view what the experiences meant to them. So there's this concept of post-traumatic growth, right? So it's the opposite, shall we say, of post-traumatic stress, which is when people go through something really difficult, but they see it as character building and they see it as something positive that made them better versus something that was the worst experience of their lives. Now, I'm not here to tell you that it's right or wrong to experience one or the other, but what I've seen, again, this is just through hard-earned experience, with people who recover successfully, they're able to look at those experiences and say, I really wish it hadn't happened. It was awful. I would never wish it on anyone. But at the same time, I'm really glad that it happened because it made me a better person. And I also feel like I'm just equipped so much better than I was before that happened. And you can see how that shift in mindset might affect someone's fear of symptoms. This is where it all ties back into that chronic dizziness, fear, anxiety, avoidance cycle. As people start to view the dizziness as something that gave them skills, something that taught them something worthwhile, that it was something hard that they overcame, they view themselves as courageous and strong and capable of overcoming adversity. They view the dizziness as a teacher, not as something to fear, and they don't sit around worrying if it's ever going to come back. Someone who isn't going to react to those niggles in the same way, someone who responds to dizziness that shows up later on in life as like a reminder, oh yeah, I went through that really difficult but really rewarding or powerful experience, is not going to respond with fear. And that means symptoms aren't going to become chronic. It's just going to be a little wave of dizziness like happens to pretty much everyone who is alive on this earth. So again, I leave it up to you whether you are going to make these kinds of changes during your dizziness recovery process. And not everyone makes these changes, but I think that many of you are going to recognize at least one of these processes as you start to get better, as many of the techniques that I talk about on my channel and in the free course actually are aimed toward helping you along with these 5 changes and other changes like them. If you found this video helpful, please comment below, please like the video, share the video, and of course, please subscribe to my channel. That ensures that I reach all the people who need videos like this one. All right, everyone, take care, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.